In my particular case, I would like to, start out by saying this. I was involved in a historical circumstance that cost 2 human lives. And because of that, I have a wound that will never heal. So I am involved today because it is my firm belief that there is no reason to take a life. There's no reason anywhere at any time for any reason to take a human life, and that is especially with respect to the state. The state is supposed to be the example of civil behavior. And if the state kills, it only says what? It's all right to kill, because the state can find a reason to kill, so why shouldn't you find a reason to kill, or I find a reason to kill? There is no reason to kill. Let me tell you a little about my case, but first I want to, I'm one of the founding members of the campaign to end the death penalty. I was there at Harvard University on our first, our birth. It's like rock, and now it's grown up. We're nationwide, and we're doing things overseas. So it's a beautiful thing to see such a beautiful thing happen in this society. We were involved in the Illinois. We were deeply involved in the Illinois decision with Governor Ryan, let's clap for Governor Ryan. Governor Ryan exonerated. He gave clemency to every prisoner in the death house. What was it, 160-something people? That should always be in our minds, that it can happen. It can happen right here in New York State. It can happen in Pennsylvania. It can happen in Texas. It can happen in Florida. The Bush brothers, God bless them. But let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what happened in my case. I was a former Black Panther. I joined the Black Panther Party in 1968. Around 1969, the end of 1969, we realized that a lot of drugs were coming into the African American community. And so the little idealistical guys that we were, we put together units that were going out with the idea of getting rid of drugs. In hindsight, well, we were wrong. It seems like we can't stop aircraft carriers and F-16s and stuff like that. But we tried. We had a guy who came to us and said that he just got out of prison. He used to be a courier for a mafioso drug family. And so he knew where drop spots was. Drop spots are places where drugs and money meet at the same time. And you would be amazed where it happens. It happens in movie theaters. It happens in restaurants. It happens on the corner. It happens everywhere. Drugs pass hands, drugs and money. We were basically successful on 2 or 3 occasions, and then we were doing surveillance in Hollis, Queens. And my 2 comrades went in, and I heard gunfire. I ran into this delicatessen, and I saw that as I was walking in, I was running in, one of my comrades bumped up against me. He made a sound like he was hurt, and he stumbled and fell. And I looked back, and then I looked this way, and I went to reach for him. And as I reached for him, the tree that he fell in front of almost exploded because of gunfire. Of course, I got around the other side, and I was trained to, in a case where someone is down and you cannot carry them out, you must save yourself. So that's what I did. 2 weeks later, I was arrested at the Canadian border, but it just so happens that the person who was in this, who had gotten shot, was a police officer. I was arrested at the Canadian border. 2 weeks later, I was taken to Plattsburgh. I was put in a chair and beaten. I had not been beaten like that in my life. On the end of it, they say they had got a confession. I went to trial because I know I had not killed anyone. I never killed anyone in my entire life. I did do something wrong to a cat. I didn't like that. I mean, it's been on my mind, my conscience for a long time. You know, in fact, every time I see a cat, I ask him for forgiveness. You know, but I went to trial, and I was found guilty. I had an all-white jury, all male, average age 55, out of Queens County. A year after I was in the death house, the district attorney in my case was disbarred for taking bribes from organized criminals. A year and a half after I was in the death house, the judge in my case was cited in an investigative article by Jack Newman as being one of the 10 worst judges in New York State because of his favoritism to organized criminals. The lawyer who was assigned in my case was later determined to be a lawyer who frequented organized crime clients. We took this to court, and do you know what they said? You are being conclusatory. What? Conclusatory? What is that? I had to go to the dictionary. And after I went to the dictionary, they told me, no, well, you got to go to the legal dictionary. And conclusatory means that you, although you may have a set of variables, they don't come out to say that, you know, just because all of these people are associated with organized crime and your case was associated with all of them, doesn't mean that you're innocent. You know, so I wind up spending 2.5 years in the death house and 20 years in prison. I was released. Let me tell you how I was released. The guy who was setting all this stuff up, the guy who wound up being the courier, he wound up being an FBI agent. He was an agent. And he was, you know, but we had a hearing, and two people from the Justice Department came up there. No, one from the Justice, another from the FBI. They said this case does not exist. This issue does not exist. Turn over all records. It doesn't exist. Luckily, the judge said, "Hey, no, something got to happen because we know what happened." So they agreed to let me out on parole. So here I am, standing in front of you. I've been, since then, because of my activism, I've been back to prison 3 times. In 1998, I was with the campaign and involved in the Darrell Harris case. I stood on the steps of the Supreme Court in Brooklyn, criticizing Pataki and Giuliani. I go to parole. They cited a report 4 days ago. They give me 5 years in prison. 22 months later, they approached me saying, if you sign this affidavit saying you won't sue, we'll let you out in 60 days. I signed, got out. Then again, I got arrested again. They violated me. I went to 5 months later, they released me because I didn't do anything. Then in 2004, I was involved in a movie called Deadline, which is about the death penalty. And I encourage everybody here to get a case, you know. But see that movie. But anyway, I was a parole officer. Right after that says that I didn't report for 3 months. I know I reported. They gave me 2 years. I spent 14 months in prison. Freedom of Information Act, got the records that I reported. They let me go. I have to wrap this up, right? Right. All right. You know, I would like to say to all of you, your support for this issue, you know, is undying. It is needed. Our human life is at stake, you see. And this country is holding humanity back from that next step. And that next step is to appreciate, value, and respect life. You see, that is the next step for humanity, for civilized humanity.